Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the October 2024 SBIF District Rollout. We'll get started in just a moment. As a reminder for everybody here, everyone on this webinar will receive a copy of this presentation via email. Additionally, if you'd like to rewatch the video, you can find it at DPD's YouTube page. If during the presentation you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the Q&A chat box. We'll get started in just a moment. Again, hello everyone and good afternoon. My name is Kim Brisky with Summer Corps. We are the administrator of the SBIF program. I welcome you today to the October 2024 SBIF District Rollout presentation. Everybody here today will receive a follow-up email with a copy of the presentation, which you can also rewatch on DPD's YouTube page. If you have any questions throughout this presentation, feel free to enter them into the Q&A chat box on the screen. We will be answering them behind the scenes, as well as having a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gabrielle Miranda from DPD to get us started.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Kimberly, for the introduction. For everybody else, my name is Gabrielle Miranda, and I am a coordinator of economic development here at the City of Chicago's Department of Planning and Development, otherwise known as DPD. A representative from the city's SBIF administrator, Summer Corps, who will be making our presentation today. I just wanted to welcome you as we're getting settled in. The Small Business Improvement Fund, also known as SBIF, provides grants to small businesses and property owners to make needed improvements to their properties. Over the last few years, we have made a lot of exciting changes to the SBIF program, including increasing the size of the grants available to you and making funding available in TIFs and new TIF districts across the city. Technical assistance is a key strength of the SBIF program. When you submit your application, you will be assigned a Summer Corps project manager. This person is here to help you through the SBIF process. If you have questions about the process or run into issues that may delay you or your project, please contact your Summer Corps project manager immediately. They can answer your questions and help you troubleshoot and problem solve. Your local delegate agency is also another great resource. Those are your local chambers of commerce or community development corporations. The person who will be presenting them later, the person who will be presenting later will provide a list of them in the presentation. Just like Summer Corps project managers, they are also here to help you. They often can help you with the SBIF application itself, or with things like introductions to your local lenders and helping you through the city permitting process, among other things. We are here to support your application because we want you to have a successful project and ultimately have better flourishing for your business. With that, I'm happy to introduce Kimberly for the presentation.
Thanks, Gabrielle. Hello, everyone. My name is Latanya Jones. I am the Deputy Director of the Small Business Improvement Fund here at Summer Corps. Thank you for joining us today, and let's get started with our presentation. So today we will be discussing the eligible requirements for the program and what you can expect going through this process. Here is an overview of what we will be discussing today during the presentation. We will explain what the SBIF program is about, how you can determine if a business or property is where it's located in a TIF district, which districts are open and on deck, what are the program rules, how you can go about applying, what resources are available to help, provide you with information on the October rollout with an example project, cover the frequently asked questions, and conclude with an additional Q&A. Since 1999, the City of Chicago Small Business Improvement Fund promotes economic development by providing small businesses and landlords with reimbursable grants to assist with permanent building improvements. Please note that residential projects are not eligible through this program. SBIF grants uses tax increment financing, which is known as TIF, revenue to reimburse grantees for the pre-approved repair or rehab of their business facilities or adjacent land acquisition. Summer Corps is the program administrator contracted by the city's Department of Planning and Development. Grant parameters. The property must be located in the TIF district where SBIF funds are available and is authorized to accept applications. There are different types of applicants that can apply for this program, such as landlords of commercial or industrial properties, owner or operators of a commercial or industrial business who also own the property, tenants with prior written approval from the property owner, and startup businesses are eligible to apply with a detailed business plan and also will need to obtain a current Chicago business license. Eligible applicants can apply if the commercial or industrial landlord with 9 million or less cumulative net worth and 500 liquidity asset maximum per individual. Commercial tenants or owner-occupied applicants must have an average of 9 million or less in gross sales per year. And then industrial tenants or owner-occupied with 200 or fewer full-time employees are eligible to apply. All owner-occupied properties are subject to both tenant and landlord requirements through this program. Grant size. Depending on the type of applicant you are, will determine the maximum grant assistance that you're able to receive. $250,000 is the maximum per industrial property. $150,000 is the maximum per commercial property occupied by a single owner or tenant, and $250,000 for a commercial property occupied by multiple owners or tenants, with the understanding that the maximum assistance of $75,000 can be received by individual applicants at that property. SBIF applications and SBIF grants are non-transferable between applicants and properties. Applicants who wish to apply for SBIF funds for more than one property must submit separate applications for each property. Applicants may receive one or more grants up to the maximum program assistance. Once the maximum is received, or once the maximum is reached, the applicant will need to wait 3 years to reapply. Depending on the gross sales or net worth, will determine the reimbursement percentage that you are eligible to receive. For commercial businesses, if you have 0 to 3 million you will be eligible to receive 90% reimbursement. If you have 3 to 6 million, you'll be eligible to receive 60% 60% reimbursement on the eligible cost. If you have 6 to 9 million, you'll be eligible to receive 30%. And for all industrial projects, the maximum reimbursement that can be received will be capped at 50%. To better help you understand the calculations of this program, here is a SBIF grant calculation example. Grace submits an application for a SBIF grant in an open district with a total eligible project cost of $100,000. She is proposing to make permanent building improvements to her existing retail shop for which she is the tenant. Grace has been in business for 5 years, and over the last 3 years, her gross sales averaged at 1.5 million. The breakdown of the eligible cost is as follows. The total eligible project cost is at $100,000. Since she is a commercial tenant and her gross sales is under 3 million, she is eligible to receive 90% reimbursement. This will leave the city's responsibility at 90%, which will equal 90,000, and the applicant's responsibility is at 10%, which totals 10,000. The SBIF program is a reimbursement grant, so project participants should be prepared with financing to support the cost of the permanent improvements. We encourage applicants to contact their business lender or reach out to one of the lenders listed on the Summer Corps' website in a timely manner. Grantees may choose to complete their project in phases rather than requiring 100% of the upfront costs of the project. To participate, grantees must receive an approval for the full scope of work and the phase work schedule. Construction timing will be completed based on necessity and contractors' recommendations. Receiving phase disbursements will be based on the progress or completion of eligible construction work. This example helps break down the process if you decide to break your project into phases. The full scope of work includes roof tear-off, HVAC work, and facade renovations. The total cost is $180,000 with the grant approval of $150,000. Once the applicant completes the roofing work and provided the proper paperwork, the applicant can receive the reimbursement for that work and use those funds to address the next work item, which is the HVAC work. Then repeat this process to get reimbursed for the work and use those funds to address the facade improvements. What is the program timeline? In the first stage, you will be given 20 days to provide the requested information needed to complete your application to determine eligibility. Once you are deemed eligible, you are moved into stage 2, where you would have 120 days to provide us with the detailed plans, bids, and specs of your project and cure any city debt. And if you're aware of any city debt, please ensure to take care of that as soon as you can. Please note that stage 1 and 2 must be completed before final review and project approval by DPD. If approved, you will receive your conditional commitment letter signaling you to begin construction. You'll be placed into stage 3 when you receive your approval letter, which is signaling you to start construction. You'll be given up to 10 months to complete your project. And then you will be requested to provide us with proof of issued permit or submitted permit application, which is concurrent with the 10-month construction phase, must be submitted within 120 days of the date of the commitment letter. Also, the applicant must provide proof of sufficient funds to complete the project, which is also concurrent to the 10 months of the approval letter. Once the project is completed and you've provided the requested payment documents, you will be moved into stage 4. Summer Corps will review the submitted documents, and if all the paperwork is sufficient and a final site visit is conducted, your reimbursement request will be submitted to the city for processing, which takes about 4 to 6 weeks before you receive your check. Please understand that unless DPD has granted an extension of time, applicants who do not complete each stage within the required phase timeline will be disqualified and removed from the program. In order to determine if your business or property is located in a TIF district, please visit our website at summercorps.com/SBIF. Step 1, you will want to select the link for the SBIF locator tool, which will take you to the website where you can enter in your property address. Once you enter your address, it will let you know if your property is eligible, provide you with the name of the SBIF district of where your property is located, and when the district is scheduled to open for new applications. It would also provide you with a list of delegate agencies for your area for them to assist you. Eligible SBIF districts in Chicago spans across neighborhoods on the north, south, and west sides. Each month marks a new 30-day period in which SBIF districts with available funds open for applications. Notice of districts opening are provided to the relevant aldermen, posted on DPD and Summer Corps websites, and included in the monthly SBIFgram. You can also visit our website at summercorps.com/SBIF to obtain a list of the upcoming districts opening, and this information will be available under the TIF rollout calendar. Which business or organizations types are ineligible to apply? Please note that this list is not comprehensive, but will give you an idea of similar uses that are not eligible under this program. This will consist of chains and franchises, branch banks, employment agencies, currency exchanges, payday loans or title secured loan stores, pawn shops, liquor stores, hotels and motels, nightclubs, adult uses, places of worship, smoke shops, not-for-profit social clubs, organizations that have a national affiliation or similar uses. And if you're unclear with if your business type is eligible, you can definitely feel free to reach out to us. What type of improvements are eligible for SBIF funding? This would include roofing and facade improvements, components of the signage and awnings, which are affixed to the building, ADA compliant improvements such as railings and or ramps, HVAC and other mechanical systems, plumbing and electrical work, certain project-related architectural and construction management fees as it relates to the project, certain environmental remediation measures, permanent interior renovations, including fixtures, and a purchase of adjacent land parcels for the purpose of expanding your business or parking. What improvement costs are ineligible for SBIF funding? This would include new construction, standalone minor repairs and cosmetic improvements, equipment and equipment related expenses such as kitchen appliances, computers or office furniture, planters surrounding or affixed to the building, outdoor dining or drinking areas, including roof decks, beer gardens, outdoor patios, balconies, awnings, porches or decks, fencing, pergolas, privacy screens, and similar structures, parking lot construction or repairs, landscaping, or interior work for residential units. Design requirements. Applicants for commercial property seeking a grant of $25,000 or more shall be required to make at least one exterior improvement using at least 10% of the maximum amount of their approved grant amount. To receive project approval from DPD, improvements must conform to DPD's design guidelines. Applicants are strongly advised to consult with Summer Corps and design professionals on design requirements and guidelines before drawing up plans for work. The key exterior guidelines that DPD will review during the approval stage will include preserving or recreating the original design and window opening when possible, incorporating permanent signage to clearly identify the business, adequate lighting, especially near entrances for welcoming customers, avoiding window clutter. Windows should let in natural lighting and attract past buyers to the business. For more information, Department of Buildings does have some window sign information of how you can be compliant. And then other form of securities are preferred, but if necessary, only interior mounted security shutters that are integrated into the storefront design can be reimbursed. What measures are in place to ensure applicant compliance with the program rules? Checks will be performed on all applicants during the approval stage to ensure they are complying with child support laws and not indebted to the city. Any scofflaw debt must be cured to participate in SBIF. Applicants can cure the debt through a city payment plan. Applicants using a payment plan must be in compliance with that to receive any SBIF reimbursement funds. All applicants must be current on property taxes prior to approval or any reimbursement for completed work. Each applicant must sign an economic disclosure affidavit. Grantees must sign an affidavit stating that they will not relocate out of the TIF district or sell the business within the 3-year period following the disbursement of funds. And to be reimbursed, landlord applicants must have an executed lease with a qualified tenant, and that tenant must be occupying and actively operating their business or not-for-profit out of the lease space. How do I apply? Visit our website at summercore.com/SBIF to download and complete the SBIF application within the designated open period. Please allow 2 business days for Summer Corps to confirm receipt of your application via an email response. If you do not receive an email confirmation within this time, please send an email to spiff@summercore.com or give us a call at 312-360-3300. Applicants are responsible for making sure submissions are received within the open acceptance period. Applications received after 5 p.m. on the last day of the acceptance period would not be eligible. What resources are available to help? You can visit our website to access resources that would help you through the SBIF program. We have a list of resources that include lenders, contractors, technical assistant providers, and small business resources that can be used as a tool to help. You can also connect with your local delegate agencies to assist in filling out your application. Please get to know your local delegate agencies. These organizations are assigned to assist small business owners in the SBIF districts opening this month. You may be familiar with these organizations. If not, please reach out to them, introduce yourself, and let them know your plans with the SBIF program, and they will try their best to assist you accordingly. And as a reminder, this presentation will be emailed to those who attended today. For the October SBIF districts, we started accepting applications, and we will have these areas open until October 30th at 5 p.m. The districts that are open for new applications are 79th and Southwest Highway, 111th and Kedzie, Addison South, Inglewood Neighborhood, and Western Rock Island. Please note that the 79th and Southwest Highway and Inglewood Neighborhood TIF districts, which fund the SBIF program in those areas, are scheduled to expire December 31st, 2025. When a TIF district expires, the SBIF funds will be liquidated and the impacted TIF districts will no longer exist. All approved projects in these areas must be fully completed by November 15, 2025. This will allow time for processing prior to their scheduled expiration. Here is a sample SBIF project that was completed in the Addison South TIF district. Haun Hapkiko, located at 2743 through 54 Northwestern Avenue. They utilized SBIF to complete some exterior and interior renovations of their business space. Their project summary included roofing repairs, a new rooftop HVAC unit with associated ductwork and connections, exterior lighting, and drain tile systems for the basement. What additional documents should I have on hand to submit along with my SBIF application? This would include business tax returns, proof of ownership, economic disclosure statement, personal financial statement, affidavit of child support, jobs created and retained survey. For startups, we would require a business plan and 3-year projections and expenses, executed lease agreement, affidavit and certification of property owner, an affidavit of full-time equivalent employees, and copy of tenant leases. Please note that these documents are not required to submit with your initial application, but we want to give you an idea of the general documents that will be requested, depending on the type of applicant you are. Are startups or new businesses eligible to apply? Yes, most startups can apply. Startup applicants will need to supply a detailed business plan and projections of the business income and expenses for the first 36 months of operation as part of their application materials. The City of Chicago reserves the right to impose additional conditions for funding in connection with the startup business application. If you have only been in business for 1 to 2 years, Summer Corps would require tax returns and a projection of gross sales to equal 3 years of data. Am I eligible if I live outside of Chicago? The important consideration is where you have your business or property. To participate in SBIF, your property must be located in the City of Chicago. As funding sources comes from City of Chicago property taxes. If you live in another area, please call your city planning, economic development, or community development department to see what programs are available to assist small businesses. What if my building has both business and residential spaces? The program is primarily for business use, but there are mixed use exceptions. For these buildings, many envelope projects such as roofing, facade improvements, and tuck pointing can be eligible. Can SBIF be used with other City of Chicago grant programs? No. SBIF cannot be used at the same time as the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund or Chicago Recovery Plan grants on the same property, on same project, or covering the same scope of work. However, you may apply for multiple grants at the same time and select the best fit for your project, provided you stay within the grant timeline requirements. Will there be enough SBIF funds for all applicants? Each tax increment financing district that has a SBIF program authorized in it has limited funds reserved for the program. If the demand for the SBIF funds is greater than the available funding supply, then a lottery will be conducted to determine the order in which each application may be accommodated. If any surplus funds become available, they will be accoladed to waitlisted applications. Is there SBIF funding available in my district? Every SBIF area has its own budget that the city refills if it has TIF funds available. And if there is a demonstrated need for more grant money, I'm sorry. We also maintain an interested party list for funds in which you can send us an email to spiff@summercorps.com to join. When more funding becomes available, the city accolates more funds and will let you know. The interested party list helps the City of Chicago gauge demand for additional funding. What if I'm in a TIF and not in a SBIF? The tax increment financing is the mechanism that funds the Small Business Improvement Fund. If you are not in a TIF district, that does not have a SBIF, please contact your alderman. Here is the contact information for our SBIF department and the program director at the City of Chicago's Planning and Development Department, Nora Curry. This would conclude our SBIF presentation, and I would like to thank you all for attending and joining us in the webinar today. And you also will be receiving a copy of the presentation via email. Now we will proceed with the Q&A session.
Thanks so much, LaTanya, and thank you again to everybody for joining us today. As a reminder, we're going to use the Q&A chat box function here. So if you have questions, because I did see some folks raising hands, instead, please use the Q&A box to put your questions in there, and we're happy to answer them now. So LaTanya, I always like to start off here with sort of just a review of what are some of the most common challenges that you see for SBIF applicants, and sort of what would your advice be to getting started with this project?
I would say the most common challenges would definitely be financing, finding finding the appropriate financing for your project, definitely finding a good suitable contractor, and meeting the listed deadlines and not communicating with your project manager.
Yeah, I think that's really great to highlight. The last one especially is that if you are running into an issue with your project, whether it be a contractor that is not responsive or a change in your scope of work, make sure that you let your project manager know right away, and they can help you work through that process. And also, LaTanya mentioned issues with sometimes finding a contractor, issues with finding financing. I would also refer you back to the Summer Corps resource page, because though we have some potential options that can help you there. We don't endorse any of these folks, but they are either people who are licensed in the city of Chicago to work, or lenders who have previously worked on SBIF projects. So let me see. Someone is asking if it has to be traditional financing, or can alternative methods be used. I'm not sure what that might mean. Maybe it's either maybe they have their own money, or like, what other ways have you seen other than bank financing to really finance a SBIF project that has gone successfully?
If not using a lender, I have noticed that we have applicants that will use like a line of credit, as I guess that would be different.
Yeah. Potentially maybe other nonprofits, maybe potentially having, yeah.
Yes. And then I know there's people who have provided us with like saving statements or self-financing, but nothing outside of that. Ultimately, if you are not sure and you have ideas for the type of financing for your project, if you communicate that with us or your project manager, we'll be able to let you know if you're able to do that, or if you would need to find an alternative route that would be eligible under the program.
Great. Somebody wanted to know about DPD's definition of chains and franchises, which actually was a relatively recent change. Can you talk a little bit about what DPD considers either a national chain or franchise? What kind of businesses would fit under that?
So typically those would be like, well, national chains. So like if it's a McDonald's, a Dunkin', pretty much how we would see it is if you have, there's no set number, but it's a matter of how many locations, if they're not only just in the Chicagoland area, but also state, national, wide. But we would have to take a look at it. If you have a franchise agreement, most likely you will fall underneath the chain and franchise and eligible business use.
Yeah. And I think, the other issue is let's say maybe it's not a franchise, it doesn't have a franchise agreement, but maybe you have there's multiple locations. If you're the owner of that, it's possible that your net worth will exceed the limitation. So that might be the other limiting matter. I would say if you're not sure if your business is going to be eligible, feel free to send a note to us, and we can, speak with you and speak with DPD to see about those eligibility rules. Let's see here. So somebody was asking what types of documents, including like renderings or concepts or estimates, are any of those due at the time of the SBIF application? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So no estimates or drawings are required during the initial submission of your application. There will be a time within the process that we will request that from you. But if you're referring to how to fill out the information on the application, it's best to put your best estimate. Even if you do have an estimate provided to you already, you can input those numbers on your application or submit them, or just provide us with your best guess, hopefully on the higher end than a lower end, just to ensure that we have enough money reserved for your application.
That's great. I want to talk a little bit about site control. So what it is, whether you're a renter or an owner, and why it's important. And the reason why I'm asking that is I have somebody here who has a business located elsewhere in the city of Chicago and wants to know if they move their business to a new area that is within SBIF, would they be eligible to access SBIF? So maybe you can talk about sort of the timing with site control and how that would impact that.
Yes. So ultimately, when you get to the point of you submitted your application for consideration for a district that's open, there will be a time period where we will determine your eligibility, which is like that first 20-day period of providing us with the requested documents, such as proof of ownership, whether you own the property, or a copy of your executed lease for that project property must be submitted within the 20 days of in order to complete your application. If the information is not submitted within that time frame, it just depends on, I don't know if it's a matter of the negotiation for your lease or just trying to close on the property. You just have to be mindful that once we move forward with your application, the process goes quite quickly from submitting your application to determining eligibility. And there's no guarantee that we will be able to give you an extension to address site control for that property.
Yeah. So it really feels site control is a super critical component. So, if the only way that if you didn't already have a lease or a deed is if you are about to, if you have a letter of intent, something like that when you're applying, if it's very far off, it might not be the time to apply for SBIF, and that's okay. You can wait sort of until it reopens. We kind of went over a little bit of the timeline, but somebody wanted to sort of walk through approval, which I feel like when I think about approval, it might be the question of how quickly, based on from when they apply to when they'll be notified that we're going to be moving them into the next phase where they can actually start, compiling the documents that were requested. Sort of what's the timeline for that?
So the timeline for when they submit their application to approval to start construction?
Sure, we can do that. That sounds great.
Okay. So ultimately, from when you submit your application, it's open for a 30-day period. Once that district closes, we usually will follow up with you within 2 to 3 weeks if a lottery is needed or if we will be able to move forward with your application to determine eligibility. Once we move forward with your application, you're given 20 days to provide those requested documents to ensure that you're eligible to proceed. Once we have all of that, then we move into stage 2, which would be the information for your project, which you're given 120 days. Long as you don't have any debt to the city, we've conducted the site visit, you're looking at anywhere between I would say you're looking at anywhere between 4 to 6 months before you get approved to start construction, but that just depends on how soon you get the documents to us. If we don't need any additional information from you, um, it's just a few things that might change that timeline to be a little bit longer. It could be 6 to 9 months if you request an extension, but ideally that would be the time frame that you will be looking at.
And I think it's important to note that the clock really doesn't start on any applications being processed until the application period closes, which is not until October 30th. So whether you submit an application tomorrow or you submit it before 5 p.m. on the 30th, the clock doesn't start until after that point. So just remember, any of the timeline that Latanya just mentioned, it's after the application period closes that the processing can begin. So just keep that in mind. One question is, what happens if an owner, comes to you and says, or that they can't complete the project during the time frame, whether there's an issue with finances, inspection? Can you kind of talk through what happens when you talk to a project manager about that, and what kind of solutions you could potentially offer?
Okay, sure. So I think it's very important to highlight that anytime that you come across an issue, or if you have questions as it relates to your project or application, it's important to communicate any questions or issues with us upfront. Don't wait until the last minute to say anything, because it's very hard for us to assist you if the time on your project, so to speak, is expired or you're at your deadline date. But ultimately, if you communicate with us upfront as issues or questions come up, we're able to gauge how to help you to get you to the finish line, or figure out if you need additional resources, or figure out like if you need an extension, just so that we're able to keep the ball rolling instead of you reach your deadline date and might interfere with your active application and possibly be removed because you didn't communicate any issues with us.
Yeah, and I would say don't wait to the deadline date to let us know. If there's an issue and you see it early on, the earlier you let us know, the better we'll be able to help you. Maybe it's as simple as changing the scope of work, changing a contractor, asking for help, connecting to find out what the status of your permit is. These are things that earlier we know, the earlier we can help.
Yes.
So would you mind, I think this is probably just about the last question here, but can you talk a little bit more about the nature of the SBIF grant? Again, we talk about it being a reimbursement grant. And so someone was asking, is like, so when do the funds come to me? When do I pay the contractor? Can you kind of talk a little bit about how that structurally works for folks with their finances and getting the project done?
Gotcha. Yes. So in the initial phases, you definitely don't want to make any payments or complete any work before you are approved by receiving your conditional commitment letter. We don't provide the funds up front, so you will have to obtain the proper financing to cover the cost of your improvements. But ultimately, you can start working on securing your financing now for your project. You just can't make any payments to your contractor until you have that conditional commitment letter in hand. And then once the project is completed, you provided us with all of the payment documents, and we've conducted the site visit. We submit that to the city. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks from the date that we submitted to them to process it before you receive your check.
Right. So the key is you are have to be able to finance the project upfront, and you'll be reimbursed on the back. Anything that you pay out before you're approved, you will not be reimbursed for. That's super critical. Let's say you also, like, maybe you did a project a year ago and you try to come to us for reimbursement now. Unfortunately, it's only approved eligible work that can be reimbursed. And like Latanya said, it's better to start now trying to figure out the financing for your project. And we also included the phase program, which is a new feature here for SBIF. So maybe you can't finance the entire scope of your project up front, but maybe you'll be able to do it in pieces. And if that's the case, again, let your project manager know right up front so that they can assist you with that. All right. And with that, I think we're done with all the questions and answers today. That was a really great discussion. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you, LaTanya, for sharing all your knowledge. For everybody on the call, just one last reminder, you will be getting an email with a copy of the presentation in it. You can also rewatch this on DPD's YouTube page. We look forward to seeing all of your applications again before 5 p.m. on October 30th. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.